Monday, September 14th, 2020, you are listening to the Inquisitive Bro podcast. On today's episode, Deer in the Headlights, Raptors extinct, Nuggets making history, Rockets drowned in the lake show. We started with 30 teams, we're almost down to 4. I don't know what happened to Pascal. That was brutal. I don't know what to say. We'll talk about it.
Save it for the pod.
I'm going to say it right now. I'm pissed. He's Chris. Siakam sucks. Let's go.
Okay, we're back. Chris and Andrew, the dream team. It's been about a week and a half, 2 weeks since we spoke in NBA. We were originally going to do this before Game 7 of the Raptors Celtics series, but then we decided, let's give it a break and see what happens. And then we had to give an extra 2 days to get over that terrible loss. And by the sounds of it, Andrew, I don't think you're over it yet.
If you heard in the intro, my name is no longer Andrew. My name is Pissed.
Yes. To those listeners out there, our friend group chats has been a lot of vitriol being sent by Andrew there. You've been like mostly just venom these days.
I mean, I need to vent. Who else am I going to vent to?
Yeah. Apparently every single person on the Raptors, coaching staff on down, sucks.
Oh yeah, I got hate for everybody right now. It's the grieving period. I'm allowed to be angry.
True.
Yeah.
What are like the 7 stages of like grief again, right?
Oh yeah, it's like I don't remember them, but like first
shock,
it's like shocked and like acceptance.
Acceptance is at the end.
Is it the end? Isn't like self-actualization at the end?
I don't know. I think acceptance is at the end, but there's definitely anger that's like in the middle, early
denial.
stages.
I think denial is one of the middle ones.
Denial.
Am I at denial yet? I might be.
No, you just go straight to anger and then stay there until eventually acceptance has set in, and then or I think you're just on to something else that you're angry about.
Probably.
You're just always angry about something. That is the way you grieve.
Keeps the fire in my belly.
Yeah. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Raptors and how they busted both of our brackets since we got swept up in the fervor and we both picked them to win the championship.
Not fervor. If we got past, we'll talk about it. If we got past the Celtics, I like their chances through the Heat. I like their chances in the finals. That's
true. I mean, I also kind of adhere to that. I think the Celtics were an awful matchup for us, like worst case scenario. I mean, playoff basketball is a matchup type sport. And we mentioned this when we had our down 2-0 pod, where the Celtics were just a bad matchup. But we'll get off on the Raptors for a bit. I'll let you vent about them later. But first, why don't we just get to some odd and ends? Because a lot of things have happened in the NBA since we last spoke about it.
Yeah. So it's a new segment we're going to try out. We're probably going to start a lot of the pods with this one because it's pretty good, pretty ingenious. We're going to call this segment News.
Yeah, buckle up.
Yeah, get ready.
Okay, so tell us about this news.
Okay, so a couple things. Steve Nash, since we last talked, got hired as coach for the Brooklyn Nets.
Way out of left field, but I like the hire.
Yeah, I like the hire too. He got a lot of hate because he didn't really go through the ranks as a coaching guy, didn't do the assistant thing.
That happens, like, I swear to God.
Totally. I'm not giving him hate. I'm just saying it was out there.
I know. And the times we're in right now, like, there's some questions that are being brought up that he had to answer, and I think he answered very eloquently in his intro press conference. But I mean, out of almost any sport, I mean, the big ones that you know of, I think basketball is the most likely. You see it all the time where first-year coaches are hired right on the spot with no other playing experience. I mean, and it seemed to work out great a lot. Steve Kerr, Ty Lue.
Even Mark Jackson. He did a great job.
Yes, but when half of the first-year coaches somehow managed to win championships, I think Mark Jackson has been quite disappointing. I'm kidding. He was fine, although like I question him as an analyst.
I like him as an analyst. I think he's part of the dream team. Jackson, Van Gundy, and Mike Breen. Is that not the threesome?
2 out of the 3 are good, and I think Mark Jackson is not good.
Really? You're not a Jackson fan on the call?
Not at all. I think he just does catchphrases.
Who do you like as a third person on that squad?
Anyone but him, basically. I don't know. Someone who actually knows basketball.
I like Reggie.
That's a different, they're...
Oh, different network.
Yeah, Reggie does not with him. Reggie Miller's great, but...
Yeah, he's great,
no.
But it's him, C-Web, and somebody else. I can't remember who's with those two guys.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Why don't you get Jeff and Stan Van Gundy together?
I think that seems like a no-brainer, right?
I don't know. I think you can only have so much Van Gundy on a broadcast. They both have the exact same takes. Like, clearly they just talk basketball with each other all the time, and just they have their own Van Gundyisms.
But don't you want to hear that? Just two guys, like, agreeing with each other over the course of a game?
I don't know. I mean, there's only one curmudgeon-y old guy that you need on every broadcast, right?
Maybe.
But yeah, good hire for the Nets. I think.
See, I like Steve Nash as a person and a player. So, like, I'm not surprised that he got this role. He's a 2-time MVP. This whole, like, thing about coming up the ranks, like, what are you talking about coming up the ranks? He's a 2-time MVP. Like, someone made a good point. Like, say Michael wanted to come back and coach. They're going to say, well, you know, Mike, you got to spend a couple years sitting beside coach over here learning the ropes.
Bill Simmons, I think, mentioned this in one of his latest pods about kind of talking about Steve Nash when he was talking with Raja Bell. Kobe. I mean, if Kobe was alive today and, I mean, later in life deciding, you know what, I want to coach. Do you think he's going to work his way up, or do you think someone's going to say, yo, Kobe, come coach us?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. This whole, like, work your way up thing is ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, Hall of Famers and guys who win MVPs, and especially guards who have led teams and have proven during their playing days to have pretty good basketball minds, give them the benefit of the doubt, and we'll see if it works out. Those who have listened to our other basketball pods know that both you and I question the locker room camaraderie of this team and the potential for...
There's some childish personalities on this team. There's some real kids like walking around that Nets organization.
Yeah, and the kids are going to stay, and they're going to trade away a lot of their role players to get probably a third star. So we'll see. It's going to be good TV to watch, but good for Steve Nash. Wish him all the best. Kind of wish that he didn't go in the Nets because I don't really like the Nets.
Yeah, me neither.
Me as like sports hate wise, not a Nets guy, but hope for Steve Nash. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. More coaching news. As of officially today, Mike D'Antoni has informed the Rockets that he will not be returning to coach the Rockets next season.
That's not a shocker.
Not a shocker. Yeah, he noted in the press conference that he's looking to try a new offensive system. He's calling it, it's pretty revolutionary, he's calling it tall ball.
Tall ball?
Yeah, we're going to switch it up. Small ball didn't work. He's going to the next organization. Guys, I got this new thing. It's going to be great. Tall guys. We're going to go all tall guys. We're going to take the league by storm. You like it?
Hey, I mean, as long as they can shoot threes, right? That's all that.
Yeah,
that,
I mean, small ball failed. So
that's all
news.
that Mike D'Antoni wants. I mean, one thing on the small ball, actually, like watching the Rockets, who have now been eliminated. I really like their system, and the thing that really just hurts them is the fact that Russell Westbrook can't shoot threes. I think if they replace Russell Westbrook with like a point guard who shoots threes, then literally every single one of their starters shoots threes.
Yeah,
I think they would be much more dangerous. I mean, they literally left Russ wide open, the Lakers that is, all the time, just daring him to shoot.
Yeah.
Like Russ literally built a mansion in Orlando with all those bricks that he was lobbing up during those playoffs there.
I know, and like I want to give him the benefit of a doubt because he had such a great season and he was coming off a quad injury. We'll get into the Laker-Houston series, but like he had a rough time out there.
Yeah.
He really did. So yeah, I got one more news thing before we get into the actual series. This one a little smaller, but Lonzo Ball signs with Clutch Sports. Rich Paul, LeBron James. Thought that was interesting. So add that to the list of athletes signing with Clutch.
Yeah, they all go to Clutch eventually. I mean, like LeBron James is like the dawn of the.
Yeah, he's the Vito Corleone of athlete / representatives.
He runs so much of the shit behind the scenes. Like even guys who are coming into the league, I mean, and are thinking about signing with Clutch, he's having dinners with them. He's one of the biggest power brokers in the NBA. I mean, I think he has more power than. I mean, he does have more power than the vast majority of like GMs and decision makers, other than the owners.
Oh yeah,
like,
I think you're right.
He probably has more power, relatively speaking, than Jordan did because he exerts it more.
I think so too. Yeah, and like the league is bigger now, and social media is obviously more active. Like he
player
can get his opinion out.
More of a thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
David Stern was never going to let a player run his show. You know? Like,
no. Stern was like Iron Fist. Silver's more of like a player's commish.
Different time though. Stern kind of needed to be at times.
Totally. Yeah, I mean the league was not what it was now as it was then. Like Stern really helped guide that along, and yeah, there were some big names that came through the '90s that helped that. But great for him. Stern did a great job.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, I got no more news.
No more news. Okay, so then let's just go straight to the basketball then, and where we left off, I guess we had previewed the OKC Rockets Game 7. I told you about the ramifications of whether Houston lost this game, and I said that even if they win, the ramifications for the team is just simply pushed down the line. They have now since lost to the Lakers, and even though a lot of prognosticators, including ourselves, and I mean, frankly, most sports fans, were going to pick the Lakers over the Houston Rockets, like I said, small ball is great. Their micro ball experiment is great, except when you face a team that has just as much skill as you, but guys who are bigger. And so the micro balls kryptonite is a LeBron James and Anthony Davis who just happen to be on the same team. So
yeah, but I mean,
this
hold
was
up.
not shocking.
If you're Houston and you know going into the season you're going to try the small ball lineup, don't you think you're probably going to run into Davis and LeBron at some point in the playoffs?
You never know how the bracket's going to work out. Maybe you hope you miss them, and also you just hope that you outshoot them. I mean, it's not as if Houston could have done any move they wanted to make the perfect team. They had Russell Westbrook. Their only real move was whether they wanted to keep their center, Clint Capella, or just go all in on the type of game that they were already tracking towards, and they just decided to go all in.
Yeah, I mean, they moved Capella for Covington, right?
Which I think was an overall good trade.
I think so too, but was Covington a big enough piece to where you wouldn't have been better off stashing Capella in case you faced the Lakers?
I don't think Capella makes a difference against the Lakers. That's another thing. Like, I don't think you beat the Lakers regardless. I think...
Let's just talk Lakers-Houston now. We're going to get into OKC's offseason a little bit, but we'll backtrack. So, one of the points I had here was that Anthony Davis was doing everything he wanted because he was able to catch the free throw line and back down PJ Tucker for 12 feet.
Yeah, literally destroyed them.
Do you not think Clint Capella would have been able to do a little bit of a better job?
I think
isn't PJ 6'4"?
6'5", you can quibble with me, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like Capella. What was Capella?
He's like
6'8",
a
6'10"?
linebacker, though. I mean, one of the selling points of this micro ball Houston Rockets team after they got off to a hot start in the regular season was, wait a minute, just because they're short does not mean they're small. We're a thick team. We're a strong team. And true, PJ Tucker, you're not moving that guy very easily. The guy's
I don't think you have to move him. I think you just have to jump hook over him.
Yep, that's what ended up happening.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I'm glad I knew that, but Houston didn't.
Yeah, I'm just saying what they were trying to sell.
Yeah.
But I mean, Clint Capella wasn't exactly wrapping himself in glory with the Houston Rockets when he was out there, right? I mean, he wasn't that good. He gets some blocks, but he can also be exposed, and also offensively, it was tough for him. I just don't think they were going to win either way. They just weren't a good enough team, and it was not a one-player move that they could have done. It's just they're just not a good enough team.
Yeah,
against LeBron.
You're right. Yeah, it was going to be a tough matchup. I mean, I know we talked about if Harden choked, how this would hurt his legacy. I wouldn't say that happened. I think he played as he should have.
Yeah.
29-7, 50% from the floor. He didn't have any terrible games. He had that one where he shot 2 of 10 from the floor, but he got to the line 20 times.
He had worse games. He had worse games against OKC. Against Lakers, he was
average.
Yeah, against Lakers, he was meeting expectations. There's some other stuff that doesn't point out on your traditional box score stat sheet. A lot of body language shit. I mean, Russ and James are just such a terrible duo when things aren't going well. This is okay. This is where I'm going to get into a hotter take. I don't actually know how hot a take this is, but I don't think you can win a championship with these two at all as your lead guys, because I just think, when you play pickup and you got guys who think they're just too good for their own to try.
Yeah, who are talented, but you just know it's not going to work.
Yeah, versus a guy who's going to grind his ass off. I mean, let's just compare Russ and Harden to Kyle Lowry. I know what I'm getting with Kyle Lowry in terms of the guy's going to fucking work as hard as he can. I will fight with that guy. James and Russ, amazing players. Their talent is undeniable. But you see all this shit, this subversive side-eye stuff, make a turnover, point to someone else, and then not hustle back on defense. That shit grates at a team at its core. And I don't think you can win playing that style of basketball, skill notwithstanding.
You're playing the Lakers in the second round. He's yelling at Rondo's brother in the stands. The focus wasn't there. And to piggyback off your point, do you know some guys, you say, the stat sheet didn't really tell the whole story of their game, like a Lowry, like a Rondo. With Russ, the stat sheet tells you exactly what you need to know about his game. There's nothing he does outside of the stat sheet to help your basketball team win.
What about those baby rocks that he does?
I mean, you tell me, they just lost in 5. He struggled. I know he was coming off the quad injury, and that might have impacted him a little bit, but he just did not look comfortable out there. They were leaving him wide open.
Well, he didn't struggle with explosiveness. He struggled with his shot, which...
Shooting comes from the legs, though. You just never know. It's possible.
Yeah. Fine, I'll concede that part a little bit. You're right. But he wasn't good enough, and I don't think this team is good enough. In fact, I would not be surprised if the Rockets GM next year, because I also don't think it's going to be Daryl Morey. I think there's changes, just wholesale changes going to that organization, although I do believe that James Harden comes back. Because if you're a new GM... I don't think you're going to make a big move like that right away. But I would look to try to move Russell Westbrook because they wanted to get off Chris Paul. And one of the only people that they were able to get off Chris Paul with was Russell Westbrook.
Right.
I would try to move off him and just maybe don't get a big name. Maybe you don't necessarily need a big name.
I'm looking at it right here in my notes. I honestly think that the system that they play with, having Russ out there with Harden, limits the offense they're trying to do.
Yeah. If I were running that team starting now, I would go back with this micro ball, but try to move off Russ and see if I can just find a point guard who could shoot and handle.
What's the appetite for Russ now, though?
Well, that's the thing. I don't know if you can move off him.
Yeah, like a lot of money.
I think when you get Russ now, you're stuck, man. Like, I don't know. What about the Knicks? Go to the Knicks. Like, hey, we'll even toss in our own first round pick. Just please take him, and then try to sign a guy. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, a team that's kind of in the dumps that could use a big name just to help like revitalize the fan base. Knicks might be a cool option. I don't know who you grab from the Knicks. I haven't looked at the Knicks in depth in like years because it hasn't been relevant forever.
It's not about what's coming back on the Knicks, which would not be necessarily good.
Yeah.
I mean, just to like throw a name out there, although I don't think there's the mechanism for which they could do this because of cap space and everything. But if you replaced, literally one for one, replaced Russell Westbrook with Fred VanVleet on that team, I think it's a much better team.
Yeah, I think so too.
Fred, a hard-nosed guy, he's just going to be an off-ball shooter. That's another thing, by the way. James Harden and Russell Westbrook, terrible off-ball, which would be something that's very useful when you play 5 out like that. Guys who can relocate threes, guys who can cut in all that open space.
Right.
But instead, it's like, your turn with the ball. I'm going to hang out right here.
Yeah, it's crazy because
I'll be here and I won't move.
Totally. You don't usually say this about a lot of people, but like Houston is best when Harden's usage rate is like all-time high. He is best when he's the main guy doing most of the offense.
He seems a little sulky when he's not.
Yeah, but he's disengaged. Like he's not in it. Like,
right. Do you think actually on this Harden point, I mean, as this Houston thing goes, it may end up being that they never end up making the finals or winning a championship. In fact, I'd probably put my money on that at this point. And then it's time to move on from James. And if he's traded, but do you think he can play a different game than he does now? Do you think that old Harden, when he was with OKC, where he cut a lot and tried hard on defense and looked very dynamic, do you think he can bring that back, or do you think this is who he is now, and whatever team trades for him is going to basically get this type of version of a player, and they better plan for that?
I think James Harden is basically mirroring Carmelo Anthony's career, like in that he's going to continue to score, he's going to put up big numbers, and people will continue to sign him to big contracts because he can do that. But as far as actually winning games and changing the way he plays, I don't see it.
See, I think Russ gets mellowed. They might both get mellowed.
Oh, probably, yeah.
The mellow treatment, I think Russ is like imminent. This is, I think, almost certainly his actual last contract, unless he wants to sign for a veteran minimum. The rate at which he's declining and the rate at which the NBA is going with, you got to shoot. You got to be able to shoot. If you're a 0 on offense, that's going to really hurt you unless you can also really play defense, which Russ doesn't like to do that much, despite his physical gifts notwithstanding. It's an effort and willingness thing, and he doesn't have that at this point. Like, both these players just strike me as guys who think they're too fucking big time to be the guys to do dirty work.
Right.
And I personally would hate that on my team.
Yeah, they're in trouble. I mean, if you look at their offseason, everybody except for Jeff Green is still under contract. So either they're moving pieces or they're bringing everybody back. I don't know, as far as coaching names, if anyone's been brought up to fill that role. Who's going to want to come in there and do the small ball thing with that roster?
I don't know. Maybe a new name. Maybe a guy like you haven't thought of, but maybe Jason Kidd. I heard or a guy that you do know. I'm not sure. They'll find a guy.
I'm sure they'll find a guy. It's just like you are coming into a very specific situation.
Yeah.
You basically have to come in and run Mike D'Antoni's offense because you don't have the personnel to run any other kind of offense.
I wonder if they might have to do something like a Ty Lue. Like, one of the reasons why Ty Lue was good for the Cavs and why he's always linked to LeBron teams is because he was like the one guy who was not afraid to give LeBron shit when he deserved shit. Because as good a player he is, I mean, like, there's just times through the season where maybe he didn't try as hard on a certain play or could have been better. And it's important to have guys like, yo, you fucked up. Because no other player is going to tell that to him.
Right.
Like, if you're fucking, like, now on the Lakers, like Kyle Kuzma, you ain't saying shit. Right?
And it's odd because it's not like Ty Lue was a big-time NBA player, but he's got the respect of his peers.
Yeah, like, from what I've been able to hear throughout, like, the NBA and stuff, it's like he's one of those guys that if you speak up to him, he actually low-key respects that. But almost no one is like...
Except the time when Mario Chalmers spoke up to him and he almost murdered him on the side of the bench.
Well, Mario should have known his place, I guess.
Yeah. Mario doesn't count. But, okay,
Mario heard that advice and he's like, I'm going to do that too, and it just completely backfired.
Yeah, he's like sits back down, he's like, man, I should not have done that.
Before you change the topic, because we're droning on this a little bit, I just think that for the next coach of Houston, they should probably look for someone that can call Russ and James on their shit.
Right.
Like, because they do stuff like that. And if you want to play winning basketball, that's kind of unacceptable. But
Yeah, I think you're right. We'll see. We'll see who they come up with. They have like 3-4 months to figure it out. Probably less, actually. You're gonna need a coach for training camp, so we'll see who they find. All right, so enough about the losing team. Let's talk about the winning team. Lakers looking pretty good.
when I first went on this, I was going to say, is this the easiest path to the conference finals that LeBron has ever had? And then I realized that it might be like one of the hardest paths because he's had a lot of easy paths to the conference finals. He just seems to cruise past the first two rounds. It was automatic, basically. I mean, I know you wanted Portland to win, but like after a while, it's kind of like obvious that they were.
It wasn't that I wanted to. I'm a LeBron fan. I just really thought they were gonna pull something off that was special.
Yeah, and then they kind of ran out of gas, but I think the Clippers are going to win Game 7 against Denver, and frankly, I'm surprised it's gone this far. Good for Denver for being very resilient.
It is 50-50. Denver could easily win that game.
Is it 50-50, though?
45-55?
No, I mean, if the NBA office sending their game notes
trust
to
me, they want Battle of LA. Let's all understand that. For everybody listening out there, if it doesn't happen, like somebody in the head office messed up.
Yeah. For those listeners out there, what the NBA does before every game is they send over a memo to the refs, just kind of notes to watch out for as the series has progressed. If things happen in the previous game, the NBA might send a memo saying like, hey, watch out for, like in the Raptors, for example, like watch out for those Jason Tatum arm extensions that he does on the drive. That is an offensive foul. The Raptors have been bitching about that a lot.
Yeah. I actually have a copy of the report for the Nuggets Clippers Game 7. It says Nuggets lose.
That is literally probably what it says. And for those who are like, if there are listeners out there who are skeptical about that, the NBA's like literally kind of done that before. Now this was David Stern's era, but just go back and look at some of those old Lakers versus Sacramento Kings series.
Buddy, the Kings got hosed,
and
man.
just look at the foul discrepancy.
So the Kings got doubly hosed though, because one, the NBA wanted the Lakers to go through, and two, wasn't Tim Donaghy the one reffing most of those games?
I think there was some Donaghy in that.
Yeah, so they were getting wrecked on both sides. That was tough. Anyway, Lakers look great, and honestly, one thing I want to talk about why I think the Lakers look so good, and I'm gonna like pat myself on the back here because I'm pretty sure I brought this up when we were doing the before bubble pod previewing the season. I said if Rondo comes back, he's gonna make a big difference, and he has been phenomenal.
He's been great. He has been really good, and I mean, so I'll kind of like throw a little egg on my face, like past his Celtics career.
Yeah.
I've not been a big Rondo guy. I think he's kind of like a locker room issue sometimes, although I think LeBron's kept him in check.
I think you're right, but do you think that Jimmy Butler and Rondo suffer from the same thing, in that if they're in a locker room with guys who don't take it seriously as they do, they don't get along with them? But if you're in a winning mentality...
But Dallas, when he was with Dallas, that was a pretty
But he wasn't
team,
beefing with the locker room, he was beefing with Carlisle, because he wanted to play, he wanted to win, and you think he knew better than Carlisle, and Carlisle was benching him.
I think if you're in a good situation, winning situation, Rondo is a guy you can probably have. I don't really like the fact that he can't shoot, although suddenly he can shoot like...
Yeah, Rondo Adamonovich?
Yeah.
44% from three in the series. 44%.
It's going to go down.
Shooter. Yeah, of course. I mean, the law of averages will kick in. But
great overall. Just having another ball handler out there, a guy who... He's always been able to throw lobs to AD.
He's a floor general.
Yeah.
He's the point guard they needed now that LeBron doesn't have to do it. Mm-hmm. Like, the last time LeBron didn't have to bring the ball up the court was the last time Kyrie was in Cleveland.
Yeah. This is probably the best that Rondo is this overall season, in fact. He was solid with the Lakers all throughout the season.
Through their first 4 games, he was their third leading scorer.
This is the best he's probably played since when he was with the Pelicans for that run.
Yeah, that was a short run too.
It was that season, but that's probably the best he's played since then. Like, he probably raises the ceiling for the Lakers now because it looks like they have more legitimate players. Because when you just move a guy down a peg, then he's not playing above his skill level. It just makes things look easier. And now Alex Caruso doesn't have to literally be the secondary ball handler.
Yeah, it's big, man. I'm telling you, Rondo stepping up is big. Congratulations to Rajon. He has now once again secured his spot on my fantasy team for the 10th consecutive year next year. I will be drafting him once again.
He's also secured probably another 2 to 3 years in the NBA to keep getting them checks.
I think so. Yeah. So a story of the Lakers-Houston series from the Lakers side. Davis was too big, got every bucket he wanted from anywhere on the spot he wanted to go.
Too good.
Yeah. Same with LeBron, basically almost averaging a triple-double. He shot like 50% from the floor. It's funny, he struggled from 3 and he struggled from the line. and yet he still shot over 50% from the floor. What does that tell you? That tells you he was getting to the basket anytime he wanted.
Not surprising. I mean, like, they got a bunch of little men on them. He's bigger than the biggest player on Houston.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. Yeah.
There you go. And more skilled, too.
We don't know who they're going to be facing in the conference finals, except we actually do. We just told you it's going to be the Clippers.
Like I said, Andrew got the exclusive ref memo, Clippers win.
It's great. It just pops up on my laptop.
But look, the Clippers are still a better team than Denver. Like, give Denver all the credit in the world. Coming back in those last two games, Jokic coming up huge last game. Jamal Murray having his moments. Michael Porter Jr. like hitting a huge 3 in Game 5 after coming out with some pretty bold statements for a rookie. Talking, basically asking to give him the ball more, and then all the TNT guys are like saying like, "This is my Shaq impression." Just like, "Shut up, little man." Like,
yeah, that's a good Shaq impression.
Gotta know your place.
Yeah, that's pretty much what he said. Except, I mean, let's talk that series now. Then I'm gonna ask you this: after being up 3-1 and everyone's saying the series was over, did the Clippers mail it in for the next 2 games?
No.
You don't think so?
Did they?
Yeah.
Maybe for a half because they were up huge, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, Denver's looking good. Their ball movement is good. It's rare that they swing it around and it ends up in the hands of a non-shooter. That's what really, like, helps the Nuggets, you know?
Right. And then they got the Morris brother, who Marcus Morris, who thinks he's probably he's the type of guy who thinks he's the best player on that team.
Yeah.
Regardless of the Kawhi and Paul George fanfare, he's like, I'm the real one. I averaged 19.6 points on the Knicks this year, so.
Yeah, I think so too. Something interesting, though, in the last 2 games where the Clippers lost, I thought it was interesting how they faded down the stretch. Game 5, Nuggets dropped 38 points in the 4th. Game 6, they dropped 34 points in the 4th. That game, Clippers had 35 in the second half.
Yeah, that's unacceptable. I mean, if you're Doc, you're probably just figuratively pulling your hair out.
Yeah, I mean, they've got nothing from their role guys in the second half as far as scoring. Game 5, outside of Kawhi and Paul George, the only scorer was Montrezl Harrell in the 4th quarter, 4 points. Game 6, same thing. Outside of Kawhi and Paul George, it was only Lou Williams, 4 points.
This is what happens when you mess around in the playoffs. They're still very good teams that you're playing against, and the Clippers didn't play 48 minutes. And now they have a Game 7 to deal with, where it's going to be stressful. It's probably going to be close, and they're going to have to play really good basketball. That being said, I think they will pull it out because they have Kawhi Leonard, who is, if not the best, like the second best closer in the NBA.
Oh, yeah.
His ability to, and I've mentioned this to you before, I believe his ability to sense the momentum of the game and just kind of feel his way to certain shots, like watching him throughout the Raptors, and especially that 2019 run, his ability to know, like, okay, now it's time to take a big 3, and he makes it. Right. Like, now it's time, like, let's kill him with my mid-range. His ability to stop runs and start runs for his team is exceptional, and I expect him to go out and score like 35 points.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Kawhi doesn't have a big game. He's a big game player. I'll leave it with this. Who do you think actually pulls this out, aside from NBA meddling?
You mean in this Game 7?
Yeah.
Still the Clippers.
Okay, follow-up question, and I think I know the answer to this. Who do you want to see play the Lakers?
Also the Clippers.
Yeah, me too. It's just a great matchup, you know?
I mean, no hate against Denver. I really like their team. as an NBA fan...
The storylines aren't there for Denver. You got Battle of LA, you got Kawhi versus LeBron. Like, It's just a great story.
Yeah, even Denver wants Clippers to win.
Probably. Jamal Murray sitting back like, man, that would be a great series to watch.
Yeah. If they lose valiantly, they're just like, Jamal, like, it was a great time. What are your thoughts, like, about this season?
I can't wait for the next series.
Man, I can't wait for Kawhi versus LeBron.
We're all getting together. We're going to rent a big movie theater. We're going to watch it together. It's going to be great.
Make some nachos.
Battle of LA. It sells itself. I love it. Anyway, but regardless of what happens, kudos to Denver on an amazing season. Oh, I got one more thing. One more little tidbit of information. If they do manage to pull it out, first team in NBA history to come back from 3-1 deficits. Yeah, in the playoffs.
I heard that, and it would be incredible. Yeah. Nothing else to say on that.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so let's move on then. Do you want to do Rap Celts now?
Let's finish with Rap Celts, because I'm bottling up my anger as this pod goes on to just let it go with that. You want to do... We didn't actually talk about Bucks Heat when that series ended.
Okay, let's talk about Bucks Heat then.
So, as we know, Bucks choked. Didn't happen for them. Heat were phenomenal. If you listen to some of our earlier NBA pods, Chris and I basically called this one exactly how it went down. We said, if the Heat managed to do to Giannis what the Raptors did to
They're
Giannis.
the perfect matchup to do it too. Had
Totally.
very similar personnel.
They were able to stop him the same way the Raptors did last year in the Eastern Conference Finals. They did it to a T, and it worked the exact same way it did. Bucks out. Heat move on.
It's also exposed more flaws of the Bucks than the Raptors did, because with the Raptors a one-off thing, and also the Bucks were up 2-0, and so you're like, okay, well, run it back, see like how this goes, and then they have this amazing regular season, better than the year before that. Like this Bucks, I mean, I mentioned this in the previous pod, but these Bucks in the regular season, in a lot of numbers, were akin to that 73 Warriors team. Like they're just slaying the opponents. Their net rating was number one by far. I think the Celtics might have had the second best net rating. Actually, no, I think it was the Lakers. And I'm just thinking on the top of my head.
Yeah.
And like the difference between first and second was the same as the difference between second and 15th.
Right.
Like
Right.
it was fucked how much higher the Bucks were doing. How they were just killing opponents. But the one thing was they do the same thing every single time. Every single time, you know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to drop back their centers. They're never going to go up. They're never going to go over on the pick and roll. They're going to leave a ton of it open above the break threes, and they're just going to be like, let's see if you can beat us with that. And also, I mean, they're just doing a bunch of swinging kick stuff on the offensive end, and they're going to stick to their rotation patterns no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to Budenholzer in a bit. Something I did want to bring out that we also called before this series was that Giannis was so limited offensively that his stats were almost halved from his regular season stats. Like, we said this before, and I'll say it again. Playoff basketball is very different than regular season basketball. What works over 82 games may not work in a 7-game series. We've now seen that again with the Bucks.
Also, put a pin in what you just said. That like copy-paste for Siakam.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the comparisons between Giannis' series and Siakam's against the Celtics are just mind-blowingly close, but we'll get into that.
Similar players, except one is like obviously much better than the other. But
Siakam's like Giannis light. Yeah.
Probably very light, but yeah.
Yeah, very light, but like similar skill sets in that like there's a couple things they do really well, but outside of that, not a whole lot.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so just to put in perspective why the Heat were so good against the Bucks and why it was a nightmare matchup was because like I said, the Bucks leave literally the most in the NBA. This is a fact. The most above the break threes. They give up a ton of open threes. The Heat this year were number 2 in 3-point percentage total, and it makes sense. They got guys like Goran Dragic, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, who are just throwing flames from 3. Also, they have like Kelly Olynyk and Myers Leonard, some big guys who can.
Heat are a lot deeper than a lot of people expected.
Yeah, it's because they don't have a lot of star names. And then defensively, they have great long wings who can create a wall. I mean, it starts with Bam Adebayo against Giannis, and then it extends to Jimmy Butler, who locked up Middleton in a lot of tight spots late in games, like just stealing his cookies, like getting his hands in there.
So this is very uncharacteristic of Spoelstra and the Heat, but they basically went with a 9-man playoff rotation. The Heat did. Their 9th guy was Andre Iguodala.
Yeah, Andre's getting up there. Little like
But on the defensive end, for a couple possessions, I like his chances against anybody in the league.
Yeah, man. I mean, just because you're old doesn't mean you can't be good. It just may like some guys you might just have to.
I think it means you just can't do it as often.
Bursts. Yeah, shorter bursts. That was a good move for them. Like Andre is another guy. Like he can still defend in a pinch anyone in the league.
Not to mention, like he's a guy who you could, in theory, bring off the bench late in the fourth quarter to match up against somebody, and he happens to hit a wide open 3 for you. He can hit that clutch shot.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and also they got Jay Crowder, who I mean, not as good defensively as Andre, not as good offensively as Jimmy Butler, for example, but just a thick guy who you can throw on a good offensive player for a spell. He's not going to get completely exposed. He'll go in there and do his job, hit some threes. He's a good player to have in your rotation. I like Jay Crowder.
Something else that I thought was interesting when we talk about how the playoff game slows down compared to the regular season, similar to Houston. You know, run and gun, launch a bunch of threes, a lot of possessions in the regular season for Houston. Really worked for them. Russ got a lot of touches. Harden got a lot of touches. Everything was looking great. Come to the playoffs, everything slowed down. There wasn't enough touches for Harden and Westbrook. Their offense fell apart. Similar to the Bucks, man. Like, Giannis went from playing 30 minutes in the regular season to 29 minutes in the playoffs.
I think he was like 32 minutes. I mean, there's a couple games where he got hurt, right, and got taken out early.
Yeah,
so
that's
like
true.
that skews the minutes.
Game 4, he only played 11.
The point about the rotations is that Mike Budenholzer does not actually change his rotations up to account for playoffs. I mean, he doesn't do it like Nick Nurse and Brad Stevens did in that Raptors series where they're literally playing their starters 45 minutes. He's never done that. He doesn't believe in that. Literally, he said, like, I don't think playing Giannis over 36 minutes is the answer. And if you can beat us, then kudos to you. And it's like, okay, but you've just lost 2 series in a row, kind of like that. It's an issue.
Yeah.
We've made a comment. We've spoken to each other about this off pod about what the Bucks were missing is, I think, very clearly another offensive playmaker who can create his own shot and also handle the ball from the guard spot. Actually, we did mention this on the pod too, but Malcolm Brogdon is going to be a potentially legendary mistake if Giannis leaves and it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Because he was exactly what they were missing. This against the Heat, like he against the Pacers first round series killed the Heat. He averaged over 20 points a game.
He had a great series.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really missed him. But again, we knew this last year when he left. We're like, that's going to be a glaring hole.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was.
He's better than Bledsoe. They made the wrong move.
Oh, absolutely he is.
I mean, I would, in an ideal world, if he had both, that'd be a pretty good backcourt. But
I mean, they did have both. It was last year.
yeah, no, I know. But I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
they had both again.
Again, for the minutes thing, yeah, Budenholzer, they say he's coming back next year. Do you think he's coming back next year?
Yes.
You do, eh?
He's still a really good coach.
It's funny how they don't want to play Giannis a bunch of minutes, but they played Lopez 35 minutes a game.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably move away from
In
Lopez
what
a
rotation
little bit.
is Giannis playing less minutes in the playoffs than Lopez?
Well, they predominantly play Giannis at the 4, although I think he's better served at just literally playing from the 5.
No, the answer to my question was nobody does that. There is no excuse. Like
Lopez really proved himself, like, to give credence to some of this. Like, Lopez was really good defensively this year, and a lot of the numbers show that he's great at rim protection.
But the name Lopez in this dynamic is irrelevant. I could have said player X. If you have Giannis at 25 years old coming off what's going to be back-to-back MVPs, you should easily be playing him close to 40 minutes a game.
Yes, Bud doesn't like to do that. Maybe he'll change his tune. He's still a really good coach. He's had a lot of success. It's hard to find coaches that have a lot of success like that. And also, he's still under contract. And I mean, in a COVID year where you're probably, we'll see about the fans and everything, but the Bucks, a small market team, do you really want to fire a coach making $5 million to hire another coach making $5 million? Like,
so it depends.
A lot of owners don't really like to do that.
No, I know, but so this is all coming back to what happens with Giannis, and we'll get into this now. What does the Bucks offseason look like? Everybody's basically under contract, so they're going to come back with the same team. We were talking a little bit off the pod. What options do they have for next year? Do you just come back with the same team and hope it works out next year? Do you try and make a move before the season starts? Or are you hand-tied, are you handcuffed with the team that you have as far as making a move? And do you just try and trade Giannis at the trade deadline so he doesn't walk in the offseason?
Yeah, so like you said, we did have this conversation off pod. And when you first brought up the idea of like trading Giannis, that's one thing I was very like against it. Because I think, one, I don't think they're going to do it, especially not in the offseason. I think predominantly what they're going to try to do is improve their team and find that playmaking ball handler that they're missing. Basically try to trade anyone but Giannis and Middleton that they can to get like a really good player. Now that sounded great in theory, but then we did this exercise. We actually went through the teams just looking at like, okay, what is a trade that reasonably makes sense? Even if you have to overpay, and we realized like there really isn't a lot. I came down with 3 names that could potentially be someone the Bucks could target.
Okay, who you got?
Victor Oladipo.
Okay.
DeMar DeRozan.
Okay.
And Chris Paul.
Right.
If you look at the structure of the league right now where teams are at, I think it's a very static offseason for big names moving. I just don't think it's the offseason for that. There doesn't seem to be a lot of teams that have pieces they're pining to move off. I mean, who knows, but things could change in a heartbeat and guys maybe move that you don't expect it. But just looking at like who is likely to be traded and who is likely to stay put, not a lot of guys that are likely to be traded.
Yeah, and I mean, this was kind of the point I was trying to make beforehand, was that even if you do manage to find those 3 guys that you mentioned, that the Bucks would like to pair with Middleton and Giannis to try and give it one more go, like who are these other teams willing to part with their stars for on the Bucks? Like who are the Bucks really, what assets do they have to give up in a trade?
Okay, well, yeah, so I mean, Victor Oladipo, like bring him up. I think he'd be really good for the Bucks.
Yeah.
He's kind of like kind of Brogdon-y, except
I
an
like
actual
it.
two-guard.
I like Oladipo with Milton and Giannis. So who are the Pacers willing to take to give up on Oladipo?
Basically, I
You
think
got
it's
Bledsoe's
mostly...
under contract for 3 more years. Lopez under contract for 3 more years. George Hill under contract for 2 more years. Ersan, 1 year left.
No, well, yeah, but it's not guaranteed. But basically, you probably make a trade surrounding, I would like to make a trade surrounding like Brook Lopez. But actually, no, scratch that. The Pacers would never do that. They already have too many bigs. But maybe, I guess, Bledsoe plus like, you just have to make the salaries work, and then you're tossing in picks. Maybe the Pacers are like, we'll take the security in Bledsoe, because I don't think they want to lose Oladipo for nothing, and then you can come back to me and say, like, Chris, like, what if they re-sign Oladipo? And that would be ideal, I think. But from what I've been reading and hearing from other people, it seems that that's just not something they're willing to do. Like, he's going to want close to max.
Yeah, you're right. And I am going to come
yeah.
back at you, though, but I'm not going to come back at you if they re-sign him. But what if they rather give that Pacers squad another run, 1 more year, rather than trading Victor now for Bledsoe? Like, personally, if I'm the Pacers, just as a fan, I'd rather give this crew 1 more season than just trade for Bledsoe now.
And I actually think you're right. When I think about it, so that's probably not a trade. I'm just trying to think, like, conceivably, if you're trying to move off Oladipo to not lose him for nothing instead of losing him free agency.
I think you ship him somewhere else. I think you ship him to the West, maybe. But
probably there's going to be someone who's willing to give up more than what you're willing to give.
So what did the Bucks miss this year in the playoffs? They missed another scoring option in the half court. I like the DeMar move. Again, what do the Spurs want from this depleted Bucks?
Well, that's one thing where the Spurs would just probably just want to get off the money. That's one where you just match it. It doesn't matter what filler you give. It's probably also Bledsoe, because that's one of the biggest non-Middleton Giannis contracts you have.
DeMar has got an expiring contract, $27 million a year, but 1 year and then you're done.
Yeah, and he's not very good defensively, granted, but the Bucks have the best defense during the regular season, so maybe there's a little give and take. He doesn't shoot threes, but the Bucks have a lot of guys who can shoot threes. They have a lot of one-dimensional, just kind of shooter guys. So this is one where maybe the strengths that DeMar brings and really help the Bucks, whereas his weaknesses are
they're
mitigated by the fact that the Bucks' team strengths can make up for his weaknesses. I don't know. I think it's also one that's a lower cost asset wise. It wouldn't take too much to get him out of the Spurs. I think they would love to get rid of him.
I think you throw in a couple picks and you could probably pick up DeMar.
Not even a couple picks. I think it'd be one.
Yeah, maybe.
Just roster. It'd be like Eric Bledsoe plus like young player and the Pacers' first round pick this year and toss in a second.
Yeah, something like that. It's interesting. Let's see. I don't know if...
And then Chris Paul is the guy that I think would be ideal for them.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because now he's their point guard. I don't think Eric Bledsoe ideally is your... Well, actually, you'd have to trade him anyway, so fuck that. We had a tough time coming up with this deal, but basically it's like you would have to give up Brook Lopez, Eric Bledsoe, like DiVincenzo to give him something.
To make the numbers work, you had to send a lot of guys back.
Ilyasova, which they can then cut for less money. I think that OKC wants to trade Chris Paul because he's got one. They're not in a championship window right now. They're not a team that's going to want to go into the tax. This is pretty well known. They're approaching the tax. They already have like some pretty good guards anyway. Like they got Chris Paul basically to get rid of the Russ deal, but now they're on this big Chris Paul deal. Who, despite how well he played this year, is still got 2 more years left at $40 million basically.
Yeah, so this is good. So this is gonna this can transition to us into talking about OKC's offseason. I think the success that they did have this season makes their offseason a lot more complicated.
How so?
Because I think as a fan base, I want to see them running back again with Chris Paul and the young guys who now have 1 more year under their belt.
Right. That would be fun. I think like Chris Paul was great with the young guys. I think he's great with a young team that tries hard, but he's obviously the key guy and he can just lead them and teach them because he's got a great basketball mind. Yeah. But he also wants to contend. Like this was a fun year for him. I think he had a lot of fun, but he wants to win a championship.
So
he wants to win one, and I think he would love to go to Milwaukee if he had the opportunity because he could definitely win one with them.
Yeah,
he could with that last year.
I think so too.
And on OKC's part, despite what the fans want and everything, I mean the fans don't make the choices. They have a ton of picks coming in, like a ton. From the Clippers deal, from the Houston Rockets deal, getting Chris Paul, where they also got picks back to take Chris Paul. Their championship window is coming up in a few years. Like, develop Shea. He's the piece to build around. Get some good draft picks. We'll see where they go. I think this is a great opportunity to trade Chris Paul when he has positive asset value. Because if he goes back at $40 million a year, and then I think he's 35 or 36.
Chris Paul is 35.
Yeah. He just played his 35 season. So he's going to be 36 next year.
Right. Yeah, that's correct.
If he has a bad year at 36 and like maybe some hamstring issues come up, suddenly he's like, yo, no one wants him, right? This is an opportunity for you might actually get, instead of having to attach a first round pick to get rid of him, if you don't want to go in the tax, you might actually get a pick back. And in fact, I think Milwaukee would be willing to give up a pick or two to get him. So I think this is a great opportunity to cash in on the value. And so I would not be surprised if Milwaukee makes kind of that desperation move to get this aging star who's still great, add him to that team, and I think it would work wonderfully. Imagine like Chris Paul just throwing Lob City lobs to
Well, so what does it do? One, it gives you a guy who can score. He has the ability to create shots for other people and create his own shot. That's something that they missed with Brogdon out. Yeah. So now you've got another guy who can facilitate for Middleton, take some of the offensive pressure away from Giannis, change it up a little bit, the dynamic. Also, Giannis running the wing with Chris Paul feeding him the ball in fast break. I like it. It makes sense.
Like in their half court, they got really jumbled up. Half court offense, that is. I think it actually, basketball wise, as long as Chris Paul can play the way he did this year or like approximately to it, I think it's a good move.
So I think there is one.
I think they're the one team, other than Philly, who is a favorite Chris Paul destination of mine. Yeah. They're the one team where they would be desperate enough and at a point where they're like, we need this 36-year-old point guard making $40 million because it's time now. We need to win now, not tomorrow. It's not about the future. It's about right fucking now.
Right. So
because our MVP, superstar, best player we've had since freaking Lou Alcindor is going to leave if we don't win.
I mean, the last time they had a big name was like Michael Redd in the early 2000s.
Brandon Jennings
was not a big name, man. No, it's sad, but it's been like 20 years. But yeah, again, as Chris said, like the reason there's so much the sense of urgency for the Bucks is that one more season and Giannis is a free agent, and they don't want him to walk. They don't want to lose him. They got to convince him over the next season to stay. Realistically, so Bucks are in trouble.
They are.
Not a lot of options, and they've got a little bit of time to convince Giannis to stay.
They're in basically the exact same scenario that the 2009 Cavs were in, where they had a really good team, but the clock was ticking, and LeBron. They knew LeBron could very well leave, and they were trying to make.
The difference is the Cavs did nothing. Nothing. That 2009 Cavs team was somehow worse than the 2008 Cavs team.
Not a big Shaq guy.
I'm not a big Shaq guy. No, he was calling himself the
late career Shaq.
Yeah.
Oh my God, who's the point guard they had, the scorer?
They had Boobie Gibson.
No.
Mo Williams.
That was the guy. That was like the best guy that he played with.
Absolutely. That team was Ilgauskas, I believe, was still there.
I forget.
Bergeau, I think, was still there. It's one of the all-time worst supporting casts for how far they went.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so I think just to put a little bow on this topic, I think the Bucks are definitely going to make a big move to add to the Giannis Middleton core. They're going to run it and try to win this year. And that being said, they will also, I think, keep an ear to the ground, assess how things are going on like a week-to-week, month-to-month basis.
Yeah.
If it's going south, they trade them in the trade deadline.
But here's the thing. You're saying like week-to-week, month-to-month. There's a good chance next season isn't the full 82-game schedule, right?
I'm not actually sure. I subscribe to The Athletic, and Shams from The Athletic had a report from a Board of Governors meeting between, like, obviously all the owners, the Board of Governors, and Adam Silver, where it's their intention to have an 82-game season next year. That is what they really want. Now, is it going to happen? It's a very fluid situation. You don't know. But that is what they're aiming for. And they're also aiming for fans. They're going to try to push it back as far as possible to hopefully have fans.
Yeah.
And hopefully play 82 games. And they'll go from there.
If I were a betting man, and as we mentioned before, Chris and I live in Toronto, the cases now are starting to go up again. As social distance is kind of being lifted a little bit, like our cases are ramping up. I can't see that not happening in the States. Fans in the stands. I mean, the NFL's doing it. So maybe they pull it off, but NFL stadiums are outside. Like, I don't know. I hope for it. Trust me, I hope for it. But who knows?
I guess it's time to go to the Raptors now.
Yeah, man.
Okay. So
Where do you want to start?
we didn't win, and I was really disappointed.
Oh my God.
You know what? Okay, here's what I actually want to start with. Had we won that Game 7, this would have been the biggest series steal in Raptors history. We would have stolen that series because we weren't the better team. Boston was the more skilled, the better team, and they had a higher margin of error. And they were not that good. They made a lot of mistakes throughout the series. And also in Game 7, they weren't that good. That was a very winnable game, played right into our hands, and we didn't win it. Turnovers and poor execution down the stretch, which really sucks to watch when it happens, when you see it slipping away.
Yeah, man. Boston played terribly.
They did.
They shot the ball terribly.
I actually thought we were going to win Game 7 about partway through the second and a little bit through the third as well, as we kept chipping away. Boston, right at the start, was clearly tight. Like, first possession, wide open three. Big miss by Brown. Like,
Oh, yeah. They started the first quarter
Brown
really cold.
and Marcus Smart, who, I mean, overall had great series. Is like, Marcus Smart, fucking hate the guy, sports hate, but also good for him. Really showed well in that series.
He was everywhere.
Yeah, huge block at Norm at the end, but they were tight. They were making mistakes.
Norm never should have taken that shot.
Yeah, no, he rushed it. I don't know, man.
What are you doing, man? You had three guys there. At the very least, give it a shot. When you hit the three-pointer and it's still there, pull it to the side. Run some offense.
That's true, but Norm has, like, pretty quick ups. Like, he can get up really quick. I'm surprised he didn't try to dunk it, but still.
I think he...
No,
did he not?
No, he got blocked off the back.
Oh, dude. You
But,
can't do that. You got to finish strong.
Look, I mean, there's no other way to put it. If Pascal plays to what we were hoping he would play at, we win this series.
No. Hold on here.
If he plays just a little bit better.
Yeah, Pascal was at like 40% of regular season Pascal. If he was at 45%, we would have squeezed in a win here.
Right.
Like, we needed so little from him to try and win this series.
Offensively.
Offensively.
Defensively, he was good.
Defensively, he was fine. He did exactly what he did in
Fine
regular
for
season.
Pascal.
Yeah, fine for Pascal. Yeah. Like, couple less turnovers. Couple less blown shots. If he was stripped a couple less times. I was not asking for a lot. I didn't even need him to play up to his own standards. I just needed him to not play like dog shit.
Yeah, he
And I'm not being hard on Pascal.
No,
and I know a lot of Toronto.
He's taking the blame too.
He's taking the blame because he deserves the blame. And a lot of people in Toronto, like sportscasters and stuff, saying, "Oh, do you know what? Like, if you were cheering for him last season, you shouldn't be hating on him this season." What are you talking about? So what if he was trash last year and he was great this year? I can't cheer for him. It's like, oh, you sucked last year, so I'm not going to cheer for you this year. That makes no sense.
Yeah, he shot 38% from the field, 12.5% from three, 72% from the line.
The
Basically
stats,
15 points per game. But
his stats were so bad that he actually managed to play worse than his stats. The eye test was worse for him watching these games. It was gut-wrenchingly painful to watch.
This is just like a similar situation what happened with Giannis, or what happens with Giannis. And like we said, playoff basketball is different. It's so matchup based, and you can take guys that have offensive warts out of series. And Pascal, for all the leaps and bounds that he's made the last few years, and also this year as like now the first time as your number one option, it gets different in the playoffs. It's very hard to be the number one option in the playoffs, especially if you're like a limited dimensional scorer. And it showed. He was all up in his head. Like when he didn't have the ball, he was far too passive. When he did have the ball, he was far too rushed and looked like he didn't know what to do with it.
He was a spaz. He was a spaz on offense.
It snowballed on him. Now, that being said, I will throw some cold water on like the Siakam hate, because although if you had to like distribute blame, big amount of blame on Pascal for not showing up the way we needed him to win this series. Actually pretty impressed. We managed to make it to 7 games.
Yeah, but as you said in the open, Boston was the better team.
By far.
More talented, executed a little bit better. Like, I cannot believe the game went to the final possession of Game 7. It's ludicrous. We should have been out a long time ago.
Yeah.
Based on the way we played, long time ago.
But that being said, it's not uncommon for guys who end up having pretty good careers and everything, like, to have some bad playoff series. It happened. I mean, the most poignant example I can give is just another Raptor, DeMar DeRozan. I looked through a bunch of his, all his playoff series with Toronto, and I came up with 3 series where he had very similar efficiency and effectiveness as Siakam was this series. So in 2016, first round against the Indiana Pacers. This is the year, by the way, for those listeners out there, where we made the conference finals and lost in 6 games to the Cavaliers. So Pascal in in the Boston series had a true shooting percentage of 43.4%. So that's like really bad. And for those listeners out there, true shooting percentage basically accumulates all the types of shots you get from the field, from three, free throw, and basically amalgamates it into like a single shooting percentage with different weights. Like a 3-pointer, if you make it, is worth more weighted than a 2-pointer, and free throw less so. So DeMar DeRozan in that 2016 first round against the Pacers shot 31% from the field, 16.7% from three, 87% from free throw, averaged 17.9 points per game. His true shooting percentage was 40.3%. Like, so that was literally just worse.
I get it. Like, other people have bad series.
And also, like, I mean, DeMar doesn't bring the defensive value and versatility that Pascal does. So Pascal actually was overall better in like this Boston series than DeMar was in that Indiana Pacers series, although we ended up squeaking that one out. Literally just, it happens. DeMar also actually had a pretty bad second round series against the Heat as well that year.
But Mike, we shipped DeMar off because we figured it didn't work. They're going to ride Pascal. Like, this isn't the end of Pascal and the Raptors.
No, it's not. Like, at least with Pascal, we know that he can be a second to third option on a championship winning team because that literally just happened. And his defensive versatility is always going to be important. I don't think Pascal's ideal NBA future, if he's playing as like peak him, is a guy who's going to be high usage, 25 points per game.
But that's obvious. That's obvious even going into the season.
Yeah.
Like, we knew that the Raptors' strong suit was team basketball. Move the ball around. Different guys are going to win you different games. Some nights it's going to be Lowry. Some nights it's going to be Siakam. Other nights it's going to be Fred. But to ride Siakam through 7 games as your main offense was stupid. It was horrendous.
He wasn't the main offense. His usage rate was not as high as other people's usage rates. And I mean, we obviously moved away more and more as his struggles were becoming apparent. I mean, so he had a 21.4 usage rate. That is possessions that end with him either like a make, a miss, or a turnover. Kyle Lowry had 23.2. Fred VanVleet 24.2. Serge Ibaka 20.9. So he was third. But then, like, we really distributed it out a lot.
I've been a big critic of Kyle Lowry in the past, as you well know. I got to give him a silent round of applause here. He was phenomenal on both ends, on and off the court. Congratulations to Kyle. You just played the best series of your life. And you deserve to win this series. You alone deserve to win this series. I thought you were awesome, man.
He did his version of what Kawhi did for us in the second round against the 76ers.
Totally.
Absolutely carried us. Was by far the best player on our team and was almost the best player in the series.
Probably. I mean, Tatum had some good games too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as much as I want to hit on Siakam, and I did, and I will continue, and I'm still angry, I do have an issue with Nick Nurse as well. And I know you don't consider this to be as big an issue I did, but honestly, I thought he made some pretty questionable decisions in this series.
Yeah, so I thought he was overall pretty good. I mean,
like,
I really liked
problem.
the way that we defended them and like gave them a ton of different looks. Tried to take Tatum and Kemba out of their games as much as possible, like sending multiple different guys at them, different looks, boxing one against Kemba. Like, I think all that creativity, amazing, and Nick Nurse is great at that. But I know what you're getting at, and I do agree that maybe the substitution patterns and the guys that he played over other dudes could have been optimized more. And you can, like, I could agree with you on that.
Yeah, like, defensively, we were stellar. The Raptors' defense was not an issue this series, as it normally isn't. We're a great defensive team. Again, I think you could have filled those defensive roles, and I understand that not everyone's as good of a defender as Siakam, but I think you could have made up enough of that defensive presence with somebody else and not have lost so much on the offensive end. That's what I think. Game 7, Siakam, after struggling for 6.5 games from the offense. 6.5 games we saw him struggle. Ibaka was great in the first half. Did not see any action, basically, in the second half. Played like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Sparingly. Siakam played 23 out of 24 minutes in the second half. 23 out of 24. You thought that after watching him brick shots for 6.5 games, the best course of action was to ride him for 95% of the minutes in the second half.
He was defending Tatum, and like we were playing that small.
But defense
ball
wasn't
lineup.
our issue. Defense was fine.
But that's where okay, so this is the thing I think where it's like we weren't a very good half court offense team anyway, and we got our offense basically off our stops. I I just think Nick Nurse and the coaching staff was thinking like this small lineup had something going. You added Norm as well. He was a scorer. Pascal's defensive versatility was like super important to that lineup that they were trying to play. That and OGs as well, switching everything. He was playing on Tatum a ton. If you like, he could play on Kemba in a switch in a pinch. Serge Ibaka's defense was really bad this series. I mean, yes, he put up huge offensive numbers, and like in Game 7 he was really good, especially early on, and that's kind of a question about like playing to coaching to what the game's being played in that moment. And you know what? He probably should have played more over than Mark. I don't mind the small lineup as much near the end because that's what won us in Game 6. And like it was still playing well. Offensive execution was bad, and then down the stretch, some bad turnovers, a bad rebound there on the Tatum.
The free throw,
and also like
that's a Norm.
And and then Norm ultimately ended up rushing that layup that got absolutely stuffed by Marcus Smart.
Yeah, that was a hero play. Yeah. I could even see it in Norm's head. I could see it was like R. Kelly's "I Believe I Can Fly" playing in his head as he was going for that. Like, I saw it happen. I'm like, I know what he's gonna do. It's not gonna work. He's gonna get stuffed, and then he got stuffed. That was a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, but I just want to make a point on like Serge's scoring versus actual like usefulness on the court, because he put up huge offensive numbers, and especially in contrast to Mark. Game 7 notwithstanding, because Mark was really bad, Serge was good. If you looked at the first 6 games and how they went, even though Serge had some huge games, scored like 18 points in like Game 3, for example, like after 6 games, Serge Ibaka was actually a minus 22 overall on the court, whereas Marc Gasol was, air quotes, only a minus 8. And now you can come back to me and say that plus minus is kind of a messy stat. It involves everyone else on the court.
It's not a perfect stat.
It is not a perfect stat, but I do believe that in this situation, it is actually quite prescient because one, we literally never took off any of our starters. We basically played the same guys over and over again. And then the only variability we had was we had almost a clear 50-50 split between the center spot of Serge and Mark. They basically played the same amount of minutes with the same guys, and just through 6 games, Serge was minus 22 and Mark was minus 8, despite Serge putting up more points, which talks about his lack of defensive effectiveness in this series.
Yeah, it's true. Again, it's not a perfect stat. You never know if Boston goes on a run while Serge is out there. It's going to skew the stat. But like again, to your point, or to my point actually, is Mark's and Siakam's defense good enough to make up for their total terrible offensive game? It's not. The answer is no.
Not.
It's not.
It was not in that. The lack of offense is like obviously more glaring with Mark. I mean, the way that he's regressed in the last 2 years, like literally doesn't even have a post game anymore. On Mark, I just want to say like, you know, had a good run with us. Thanks for the title. I think it's probably time to move on. Like best of wishes with him.
Yeah, thanks, but happy retirement.
I think he plays for another team.
I mean, yeah, he could sign his veterans minimum, and honestly, the Raptors could bring him back for the vets minimum.
Yeah. I would be willing to bring him back for the vet minimum. I think he's great to have in the locker room.
I think he does either one more year with the Raps. I don't think he wants to bounce around to another organization.
Maybe not, especially within the context of this year.
Okay, yeah. Who else can I yell at here? Nurse, like even some end of the game stuff. Like I thought that Norm ISO on Kemba was weird at the end of the first OT. Remember top of the key, they gave Norm the ISO.
Yeah,
he ended up putting up for 3. I didn't like that
call, in my opinion.
No, it wasn't great. What else? I think Fred looked gassed at the end of Game 7.
Yeah, he played a lot.
Yeah, played like 100 minutes over 2 games.
He also did not have ultimately a great series when you looked at it.
No, we were talking about this again before. I think Fred's game is a lot better against mismatch-sized teams. I think he can really play to his strengths when he can use the pick and roll, get a big guy on him, and either step back for a 3 to create space or get by him. The problem with the Celtics was, unless he got Tice on him, it was always going to be a pretty good perimeter defender, whether it was Kemba or Smart or Tatum or Brown. And he just wasn't able to shake them the same way he would.
Yeah. So we'll finish up on this point then, is as much as this is an issue about the Raptors, like not executing, having some issues, and like ultimately missing that Kawhi-like number 1 scoring option, especially in the half court, I think a lot has to be said about the Celtics and that they're a really, really good team.
They are, even though they underachieved that series. They played
poorly. They played a bad series, but still won. You can flip it on its own head and be like, yo, they played bad,
but they
still won. They have some great great guys, two-way guys on that team. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, great two-way guys. Marcus Smart, really coming into his own. Like, we already knew defensively what he could do.
Is there a better young team? Like, if you were to pick a team for the next 10 years, is there anybody you'd rather be rather than the Celtics?
Well, their two stars could leave eventually.
I'm just saying,
10 years is a long time.
Assuming you keep the teams that you currently have. Like, I'm just saying,
it's the Celtics. The Celtics are like the next big young team that kind of like, although not quite on par. It reminds me a little bit of that OKC Thunder with young Durant, young Russ. Well, they don't really have the Russ, but they have young Durant, young Harden kind of thing.
I don't think they want the Russ. You don't want the Russ.
You might not want the Durant either because he ended up being a petulant little bitch.
Yeah, but see, Durant doesn't have good stuff on court. Like, you can win with Durant.
Yeah.
You got to deal with like 22 burner accounts and like a bunch of different personalities, but like you can deal with it.
Yeah. But so then we'll just skip to then the.
Well, we should talk Raptors offseason a little bit. There's not much to do. Like, all the big guys are coming back.
I think we just re-signed Vliet.
To what, max?
No.
Is he not going to command max money?
No, I don't think anyone's going to give him max. If someone's talking about giving him max, like the Knicks or something, then you might just let him go.
Yeah.
He's not worth that.
I hope he stays.
I think you ideally try to negotiate. Like, we have a good relationship with him, I assume. You try to talk to him and be like, yo, we can work something out where we still have max slot space for the superstar that we want. Hopefully it's a Giannis. That's what like the front office is clearly thinking.
Yeah.
And then from there we move on. Maybe we give you like a 2-year deal at like $20 million, $21 million. That would still give us max slot unless the cap significantly decreases from where it's at now.
You don't think he's going to want more than 2 years?
2 years plus a player option, because that allows him then to re-up for the max later.
Right.
He's a winner. I mean, from what I've seen, like.
But do you know what? Like, after this contract, you think somebody's going to give him a max 3 years from now? You think he'll be that much better then than he is now?
We would have his bird rights. I think we kind of have a wink deal. It's like, yo, now it's time to, like, pay you up.
Right. Yeah, maybe. Serge is also a free agent. Is he coming back? He was paid $23 million this year.
I think we do re-sign Serge, and I think we eventually just trade him later because. Masai's MO has always been not letting assets go for nothing.
Yeah.
If you can help it.
Yeah.
I mean, Kawhi notwithstanding, but everyone else, like since he was the Nuggets even, like doesn't let guys just walk.
Yeah. Why would you?
Yeah, exactly. So I think we re-signed Serge. He's another guy. I wonder if you can just sign him for a better deal. I think he likes Toronto. And Toronto's been really good to him for his brand and everything. So we'll see. I think we have a good relationship with our players. Hopefully we can just sell the players on the trajectory we're hoping the team to go vis-a-vis signing a star, trying to create money for that star.
Right.
And we'll see where it goes. But they've earned their right to unrestricted free agency, and frankly, you can't really also blame them if they want to get paid.
Yeah.
We'll switch off the Raps. That's enough on them. So since our brackets have been busted, now we have to go from here. Let's just pick our favorites for Eastern Conference. So who you got? Heat versus Celtics.
I mean, Celtics barely got by a terrible shooting Raptor team. Heat took down the number 1 seed in 5 games. I like the Heat.
I like the Celtics in this. I think they're still the more dynamic offense. I think they're really, really good. I'm not that high on the Heat. Like, I think the Heat caught the Bucks when the Bucks aren't even like playing that well, and they're a really good matchup against them.
I think this might be a case of men versus boys, though.
Possible. We'll see. But I think the Celtics win another war. I think it's going to go 7 games again.
But see, in a battle, I like the Heat.
Yeah, but over the course of the series. But I think the Celtics have the higher offensive potential. I think they pull it out. They're going to get Gordon Hayward back. Hopefully,
who may help and also may hurt.
Look, man, it's like, would you rather be playing Gordon Hayward or Grant Williams / Semi Ojeleye?
Yeah, I guess so.
And from there, I think what happens is that the Celtics make the finals. They garner a lot of like OKC type comparisons, but by the end of it, they're tired and maybe get a little tight. And they're in a big situation and get gentlemen swept against like LeBron or Kawhi.
But do you think since we're in a bubble, like the feeling that an NBA Finals generally will have, especially on a young player, is negated?
No, because you just have to look at what the Celtics looked like in that Game 7 against the Raptors when they were still missing shots really badly, and you could tell they were nervous. The nerves hit. It's it's going to be in their head.
But I think they were nervous because it was an elimination game, not necessarily because it was the second round.
Look, a series can get away from you really quickly. You come out tight in game 1 in the finals, you may not be able to recover. Right?
I think you're taking for granted that like a finals is very different. Like there's special player intros, there's special little ceremonies. Like you've got people coming in from out of town. There's extra people on the sidelines you're not normally used to seeing. Like it's a different game.
There's still a lot of media that's in the bubble. They'll know they're in the finals. They'll know know them.
Yes, I'm aware that they will know they're in the finals.
Know
I can't imagine Marcus Smart looking back like what series is this? Oh yeah, it's the last one. Okay, got it.
They'll know the implications of it. It'll be on their mind.
Okay, and then in the West, who do you like?
Well, we'll just say
let's assume. You want to do 2? If Nuggets go through, who do you like?
Lakers.
And if the Clippers go through, who do you like?
Clippers.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, and then Clippers, Celtics, who do you like?
Clippers. Yeah. I like whoever wins the West over whoever gets in the East. I think the East is not going to win the finals. I think it's going to be one of the LA teams, basically.
It's good. Well, big games coming up.
But I was wrong before. Could be wrong again. You wanted to finish off on a rehash of escaping the bubble.
Yeah, we're bringing back the segment. If you were listening to one of the earlier pods, we had a escape the bubble segment where guys generally break quarantine protocol.
We pontificated how guys could continue to break quarantine protocol other than getting wings or going to strip clubs, which Lou Williams did. And then we thought about what are other ways that they could break the bubble.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, it looks like I may have been a little prescient on this one, Andrew, because did I not say side chicks and female shenanigans as my number one thing?
I think so, yeah. You called this. So our latest entry comes to us from the now eliminated Houston Rockets, Daniel House Jr. So what's funny about this is that it was initially reported by Yahoo Sports that, okay, so here's what was reported. He had a female in his room for an extended period of time.
Several hours,
who was not correct. That's really the final statement from the NBA that came out. No more details were given from that. However, before that statement came out, like a day or two ago, it was reported by Yahoo Sports that it was actually let me make sure I get this right here. I want to get the exact wording. A female COVID-19 testing official. Yes. When I saw that, I lost it. I thought that was the funniest thing I heard in the bubble the entire time.
Clearly Daniel House has like some of the best game in the NBA.
That is thinking ahead. Because she's already here. She came to me.
Well, I wonder how many guys have been like trying to toss some moves on her, and then Daniel Money House, as I assume his nickname is.
It is now.
Pulls that chick to give him some extracurricular testing. Maybe
it was just a very thorough test.
Very thorough.
That was funny. Oh man, dude, I laughed so hard.
Yeah. One last note on that is that the sentiment around NBA front offices is that this is not an isolated event. It's just an event that got caught. Apparently, I was listening to some podcasts who mentioned this. Apparently, some front office people have been talking to the media saying, like, we're pretty sure there's some other stuff that's been going down.
I'm sure. It is pretty funny, though. Like, these are adults, and you're having to basically check up on them to make sure they're not getting late.
It's like they're in first year again, and they're trying to sneak alcohol or what have you from
into the dorm.
From the dons, or like your DAs of of your residence floor.
Pretty much.
It's like, oh shit, Silver's outside.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's a weird scenario, man. And I feel for these guys. It doesn't sound fun. Like I don't think the bubble sounds like a good time.
No, I
don't think they set up a ping pong table. I'm like, okay, great, sounds awesome. Can't wait to go.
To improve mental health, like memo to the NBA players. To improve mental health, we have added a ping pong table.
Yeah. Oh man. Anyway, round 2 almost done. Looking forward to the next round. Yeah. You excited? I'm excited.
Yeah, it's still great basketball.
I wish the Raptors were there, Pascal. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, Pascal, if you're listening to this, I still love you, but
you let me down, man.
Disappointed. It's like your parents, like.
I'm not mad.
I'm just disappointed.
Well said.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, man. Sounds good.